So I know you don't have a crystal ball. You know, you're not the Nostradamus. However, what are your predictions in terms of, there's a lot of talk about the tariffs right now, potentially.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that?
This is a question that I get asked 4 or 5 times a day, right?
Okay, so you're ready with the answer.
But it's something that's in everybody's mind, right? I think that's the issue. And I think, do you remember when we were at the event in Milan, Daniele Trinelli's event, and Sandro, I think it was Sandro Boscaini that stood up and said, we've seen it all. We've been through so much. Yeah. Don't worry that we will survive all of this. And I think that says it all. You know what? I think
it was Piero who said that.
Oh, maybe it was Piero. Sorry. I may have got the quote wrong. Yeah. But I think everybody in the room, a light bulb came on, and it's, we haven't been doing this for 20 years. We've been doing this for a long time. I think that in the U.S., the biggest word is consistency.
Welcome to another episode of On the Road Edition, hosted by Stevie Kim. Each week, Stevie travels to incredible wine destinations, interviewing some of the Italian wine scene's most interesting personalities, talking about wines, the foods, as well as the incredible travel destinations.
Hello, my name's Stevie Kim, and welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast On the Road Edition. And we are in New York City, my hometown, the Big Apple. And next to me, we have Lia Tolaini, Banville. Lia, for those of us who are less familiar, for our audience, can you just tell us who you are? How would you describe yourself?
How would I describe myself? Well, I would describe myself as I'm a winery owner in Tuscany. And as of late, brand new project. It's not a new project, old project, Pala in Sardinia. So I own 2 wineries. And I'm an importer, a national importer in the United States of fine wine. And we have 7 wholesale markets where we are a direct distributor.
So if you were to choose, as being an importer or a wine producer, which is more Lia Tolaini Banville?
Depends on the day.
Okay.
It depends on the day. I love the production side, winemaking. It's, for me, an amazing part of wine. Selling it is a little more competitive, but there's so many wonderful people that you meet doing this. I love meeting people. I love making friends. So that's not on the production side as much as it is.
When did you start this entire business? When did you start with the wine business?
The wine business I started in 1998 with a retail store in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada.
1998.
98,
okay.
Yeah. And I left there, then I started helping my father in Tuscany, because at that same time he started Tolaini Estates. And then we realized we needed a route to market, so I opened Banville Wine Merchants in 2004.
So in a way, you started the import business because you needed to.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, there you go. You talk about vertical integration. This is the key model right here. So I guess what we would like to do with you today is very simple. For those who are interested in entering the U.S. market, what are the 5 must things they need to know about broaching the U.S. wine market?
That's a very, very big, loaded question.
Yes. We have some time.
We have some time. It's getting more and more difficult. The market is more and more saturated with great wines. It's the most competitive market in the world. Nobody needs more wine, right? So if you're going to come to the U.S. market, I think you need to understand that it's not one market. It's a very, very diverse market. It's a huge market made up of smaller markets. Every state has a set of rules, and they're all different. None of them are the same. And if you just think of New York State, New York itself is very diverse. You think of upstate New York or the Hamptons or Manhattan. So it's very diverse even within states. But the most important thing is it's a 3-tier market, right? So there's an importer, then there's the wholesale level, and then there's the retail restaurant level. So this is a law across the country. This is one thing that is, a federal law. So it makes it very, very complicated. Approaching the U.S. market, the number 2 thing, once you understand that, is also understanding if you want to have a long-term strategy or if you want to have a short-term strategy. If you want to get in, make money, get out, there's lots of trends.
But who doesn't want to get in, make money, and get the hell out?
Well, one that comes to mind would be Tolaini Estates. I mean, we have a long-term strategy. All the wineries that we represent are long-term. They're in it. They've been consistent. Let's take Cantina Turlano. One of the best, if not the best, white wine producer. Started with them in 2004, and it wasn't easy selling
20 years ago.
Yeah, expensive white wine from northern Italy. People were, just took a lot of time for them to, and they've stuck to their message, right?
It's what is their message, for example?
Terroir wines, well made. They are been doing this since 1893, but they've been making wines the same way for this long. And I think that the whole world now understands and appreciates Cantina Turlano. I mean, again, 20 years ago it was more difficult. Now we don't have enough wine. The wines are the highest scoring, most expensive white wines from Italy, and we can't keep them. And they're, basically on-premise, high-end. And I think that's a success story in 20 years, because if 20 years ago, I fell in love with Turlano, if someone said to me, in 20 years this is going to be one of Italy's best wineries, I believed that, but it did. It took probably 10 years, I think, of tasting the wines, explaining the philosophy, telling the story. That's how you build a brand. There's a sommelier community here that there's an energy, and being part of that when you have great wines and they love them and they appreciate them, it's a big part of building a brand.
So how many Italian wineries do you have in your portfolio?
That's a really good question. Probably 30, 35, 40. Yeah, about that.
Alex over there's, have you got any? Have you got any 40? 40. About 40 wineries. So so you've started nearly 30 years ago. How has the wine market evolved in these 30 years?
I think that today I feel that people want to be able to put their finger on a map and say, I'm drinking a wine that's made by these people in this place. I think that is the value. There's a lot of more commercial brands, bigger labels that obviously serve a purpose, but I think there's this big divide now that wasn't there so much. People want to know the story. Like even the natural wine trend, it was about, drinking something healthy.
So what's good for you.
Yeah. What's real, what's authentic.
Right.
No chemicals, what's actually made from grapes by people. And there's a story there ultimately we're vignerons, we're farmers. Right? And that's cool. I think that all the work that goes into making a wine, we just don't open a tap and the wine fills a bottle, right? The whole agricultural part of it, terroir, where this is from, the history, the pedigree, I think that's what makes wine so exciting.
So of course you've been, a long-time distributor for Turlano, which is a, white wine, an ageable white wine, that is. You yourself, as personally, you are red wine, right?
Yep.
Until recently.
That's right.
And is that because you think there is a future for Italian wines?
Yes. I think specifically Italian white wines right now, there's so many, not only varietals, but places, terroirs that are yet to be discovered. And I really believe Sardinia is at the forefront of that. We're hearing more about the wines from Greece, Corsica, the Aeolian Islands. I think that Sardinia is a part of that, and I'm really excited. There's more opportunity, and that's what's exciting, right? When you go somewhere that's new, that's at the beginning, and be a part of the building of that. It's super exciting.
So on a personal note, before we close, how do you, as a woman, manage family and work and everything else, right? Because I know some of your family members are in the business, but how did you manage working full-time and being also a mom?
Well, I have to say that new technology, having cell phones, was very important because I could be in touch with my kids, which I think something, women years before couldn't. You had to pick up the phone, hope they were there. Now with text messaging, that was a big part of communicating, and I do believe that helped me stay very much in touch with my kids. Maybe they even tell you more on the phone than they do, text message than they do if you're sitting at the dinner table. It wasn't easy, but I loved, my family is obviously very important to me. The first 10 years of Banville, I went back and forth from New York, and it was a 6-hour trip because I didn't live in New York.
No, from Canada.
From Canada, yeah, I was living in Canada. So I did a lot of traveling, and my kids supported me. And my husband. Everybody was rooting for me. I think it was also good for them because they were much more responsible. I think they didn't want to be, I'm not going to say distraction, but they were part of helping me build my business. And they were very proud of me. They'd always say, Mom, this is so great. Mom, this is so wonderful. And you can't do it unless you have support like that.
And you've got 3 children, right?
I have 3. Yeah.
And are they all in the family business?
Alex, The youngest is 28.
I know Alex.
Yeah, he's living in New York. He's been here 3 years now. He spent most of his time at the winery in the summers all of his life. So yes, Alex is definitely in the business, and I call him my golden parachute, because when I'm 104 and maybe not wanting to do this full time anymore, I'm hoping he'll be old enough to be able to take over. My daughter, Alicia, her and her family are now living in Italy. They live in Italy? Yeah, they moved to Italy in September. Kids are going to school. They love it. They're going to stay and do another year. And I wouldn't be surprised if they stay longer. So she's at the winery and she's getting a full immersion.
Oh, I
in
see.
Siena. Yeah, they're going to school in Siena. And my oldest is in finance. He works in Canada for RBC Dominion Securities. He has his own business in wealth management, but he's obviously instrumental on the whole business side of things, right? I have Simone Lucchetti, who's the president of Banville, who, is obviously a very integral part of the success of this business, and having very smart financial people. Because wine is fun, it's great, but the numbers need to add up, right? The business part.
So I know you don't have a crystal ball. You're not the Nostradamus. However, what are your predictions in terms of, there's a lot of talk about the tariffs right now, potentially.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that?
This is a question that I get asked 4 or 5 times a day, right?
Okay, so you're ready with the answer.
But it's something that's in everybody's mind, right? I think that's the issue. And I think, do you remember when we were at the event in Milan, Daniele Cernili's event, and Sandro, I think it was Sandro Boscaini that stood up and said, we've seen it all. We've been through so much. Yeah. Don't worry that we will survive all of this. And I think that says it all. You know what?
I think it was Piero who said that.
Oh, maybe it was Piero. Sorry. I may have got the quote wrong. Yeah. But I think everybody in the room, a light bulb came on, and it's, we haven't been doing this for 20 years. We've been doing this for a long time. I think that in the U.S., the biggest word is consistency, right? Consistency and focus. Keep doing what you're doing. Make sure the wines are quality, that you have a story that's clear, and you believe in what you're doing. Make a long-term strategy. It sounds easy, right? That's already a lot.
What about for young women who are out there thinking about broaching the wine industry? What advice would you have for them?
You know what? Thursday night was out with some very dynamic, cool, smart, hardworking women. And it's the same advice I give to everybody. It's all about hard work. Love what you do. Be honest. It's the same advice for everyone. I think that there's lots of room in every business for women. I think that we are able to balance a lot of things. I don't know, obviously that's my own reality.
But don't you think that's like, our generation, the school of thought?
Maybe.
I'm going to offend a lot of Gen Zs out there, but I think they just have another outlook in life, priority.
For sure.
I mean, I think they are, being in their defense, I think there are less opportunities for them, but
maybe
in terms of growth, potential growth. But I think at the same time, after COVID especially, people don't want to work hard anymore.
Oh, you are absolutely right. And that's the difference. I mean, my father immigrated to Canada and was successful because he didn't sleep. He worked hard.
Yeah.
He had a grade 7 education and built, an important trucking company in Canada, the largest privately owned trucking company in Canada. And he's always said it was because he worked very hard, made lots of mistakes, got up the next day, and, just upwards and onwards. And obviously, I think I have a bit of that learned from my dad. My kids too, sleeping is not a big part of what I do.
I always say sleep is, overrated, and I can sleep when I'm dead,
that's
right?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Exactly. I mean, I'm exhausted today because I've had a tough week.
No, but
I'm loving it.
I think it's a generation thing. I'm really serious.
Also,
Korean American, very.
I think you're right. And follow up. It's one thing to say you want to do this, but then executing on the plan. Like, you can dream this stuff all day long, but it's about the execution. Make steps. Make a roadmap. Check it off. I mean, it's basic, but you're right. Sometimes there's some obstacles and people just go, don't want to.
When I get irritated with my daughter, my one daughter, I always say, yes, she'd love to save the world, but with my credit card.
Exactly.
That kind of. Okay, and I think with that, we need to wrap. So, from New York City, Banville Wine Merchants, thank you for hosting
Thank you,
again.
Stevie. And always happy to promote wine education, Italian specifically. Obviously, that's the heart of what we do. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of On the Road Edition, hosted by Stevie Kim. Join her again next week for more interesting content on the Italian wine scene. You can also find us at ItalianWinePodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. You can check out our YouTube channel, Mama Jumbo Shrimp, to watch these interviews and the footage captured at each location. Chin chin!